This week on the TT show, we take a look at Apple's new dual OLED iPad Pro and the new M4 chip, the whole Helldivers 2 Steam controversy, Bethesda development studios closing, benchmarks for Intel's new GPU, Nintendo confirming the Switch 2, and much, much more. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the TT show. My name is Jak Connor. I'm a hardware editor over at Tweaktown, and today I'm joined by my co-host,
Kosta Andriadis, gaming hardware editor at Tweaktown.
Hello, my friend.
Hello. It's been a wild week for gaming news.
For PC gaming.
Yeah, especially PC gaming. Specifically, one PC game. Specifically, one PC game on a specific platform from a specific publisher.
Before we get into that, everyone should take a guess. Who do you think we're talking about?
It's got to be the... I don't know. I was trying to think of some game that nobody's playing.
No, of course we're talking about the Helldivers 2 controversy. We should give a quick kind of...
This one needs a summary.
It needs a summary. It's well, the event started on... When was the blog post?
Weekend, wasn't it? Or on
it was
weekend?
All of this happened across the weekend. So,
it happened in like 30 hours total, right? So it's like in Australia where we are, like basically, I think it would have been Friday in the US, so it would have been like Saturday and then Sunday, like in the space of like 40 hours or 48 hours total, whatever it was. Basically, the Helldivers 2 roller coaster started.
Yeah,
and then it was just like down, like it was just like it was in free fall.
It was tragic. So Sony woke up and decided that they wanted to absolutely light on fire their most popular PC game. No, but that's not what happened. But effectively, that is what they did. So it began when Sony Interactive Entertainment, the publisher for Helldivers 2, went to the Steam listing. They posted an update saying, I've got it right here. Attention Helldivers, due to technical issues at the launch of Helldivers 2, we allowed the linking requirements for Steam accounts to a PlayStation network to be temporarily optional. The grace period will now expire. See details below. So, at the start of the game, for what I'm pretty sure the director of Arrowhead Studios, the developer, said that they decided to make that optional because there was so much server load. And I remember, do you remember when Helldivers 2 came out? And
it was all about like server load management. And
no one could get in. Everyone was in queue.
Yeah, and they had crossplay, I think, so it was PlayStation and... So basically, so Helldivers 2 published by Sony and PlayStation on PC and PS5 only. And on the PC side, well, just before this whole saga began, like a week ago, it was announced that it's basically Sony's one of the best-selling games of all time in terms of like first-party titles. And one of the reasons is that it's done really well on PC. And according to some data, there's potentially up to 2 times as many people playing Helldivers 2 on PC than they are on PlayStation 5.
Oh,
but
wow,
either way you look at it, it's a success on PlayStation 5, but it's an absolute juggernaut on PC.
Yeah.
So the thing with PC gaming and PC gamers, as you know, is that anything that strays from the ordinary or even remotely is slightly different,
we get upset, Costa.
Yeah, not upset.
I get upset. I get upset. No, but you're totally right. And well, the next paragraph is straying from the norm. So the grace period for PlayStation, a Steam account to be linked with a PlayStation account being optional was going to be over. Account linking plays a critical role in protecting our players and upholding the values of safety and security provided on the PlayStation and PlayStation Studios games. This is our main way of protecting players. They're protecting us from griefing and abuse by enabling the banning of players that engage in the type of behavior. So from that statement, they were saying if players are more safe if they're connected to the PSN network, which I don't believe.
players are connecting to the network, so they're their customers primarily, is what the thing is. Because Sony used that same excuse, or well, whatever, if it's an excuse or not, it could be their belief, right? They could firmly believe that, and they might have protocols for safety and stuff because they would, because they're a network, right?
But it's just an email. You're just connecting. You're making an account.
Yeah, but
how are they protecting you?
Right? You're still using.
How are they protecting you? How is there more security?
Steam. Yeah, but they made that same excuse when they didn't want to allow people to play Fortnite crossplay. So Microsoft was the first to say, sure, PC and Xbox players and Switch play, whatever, you can play on Fortnite together. You know, that's whatever, crossplay done. And then Sony was like, no, because our PlayStation network keeps our players safe, and we need our player safety is the main concern. So that's why we're not going to allow crossplay between PC and PlayStation. This is years ago, right? That was the same playbook. And why did they say that? Because they got their closed garden ecosystem. And the PlayStation network, we discussed this last week. Like we talked about like how the PlayStation network coming to PC is like a goal for them. And this is like a major...
They shat all over it.
Like this would have been like, you know, they were... I mean, the goal here was very simple, right?
Yeah.
Helldivers is one of the most popular games on PC. So you can get millions of people to link their accounts, right? So all that means is that you're just connected to the PlayStation network via a Steam protocol, but via your Steam account, which is your email address, et cetera, et cetera. And then they're essentially PlayStation network users at that point. And this was, I mean, obviously it's their game and their server, they run the servers and, you know, et cetera, but it was a very easy way for them to add like 3 or 4 million new PlayStation Network users, or however many.
Bolster their numbers to then share to their shareholders. Yeah, that's what I wrote in a few of my articles that, and look, I'm not the only person that was speculating that. I found numerous Reddit posts on complete speculation on like, why would they do this? Like the next paragraph is what really drove home the entire Helldivers 2 community turning on their game. And it is the following. As such, as of May 6th, all new Helldivers 2 players on Steam will be required to connect their Steam account to a PlayStation Network account. Current players on Steam will start to see the mandatory login from May 30th and will be required to have linked a Steam and PlayStation Network account by June 4th. There is so many trigger words in that sentence for PC gamers.
Basically, mandatory.
Mandatory, required, and like just those two. Steam is coming out of the ears for PC gamers. Like, wait, you're telling me I have to do this?
But I don't think anybody could have predicted the reaction, right? So this, like the reaction was basically a fire that was out of control. So you've got like at any particular day, Helldivers has, you know, 100,000 plus concurrent users, which means there's millions of people playing every day. That's just on Steam. So, you know, immediately you've got a very vocal and passionate community that decided to review bomb the game.
Oh yeah, I've got it up here. I'm looking at it.
Like it was like what? 200,000 in the space of like a day or two, not even. Like we reported on it, I think when it first hit like 90,000, and then it's like a few hours later, 100. Like it was just out of control.
So from May 3, these are just some quick numbers. May 3, negative reviews, 36,000.
Yep.
May 4, 71,000. May 5, 94,000. In between those, there's more. I think that's about 210,000.
Yeah, that's insane.
Negative. They turned on it so quickly.
This is not like a Metacritic review, right? A Steam review, you have to actually have the game in your library and have played it. I mean, it doesn't matter. You can only play for 10 minutes and write a review if you want, or whatever the case is. But you have to have the game, bought the game, and played it in order to review it. So that's like 200,000 players in the space of just a weekend.
Yeah.
Like what if you just were like away for a few days or whatever? Like this doesn't even account for, if this was left unchecked, so this basically just snowballed. It got out of control because damage control from Arrowhead, the development studio behind Helldivers 2 was, they were trying their best to put out a fire.
Should you imagine being there? Imagine being at Arrowhead.
Or like a community manager or something like that.
We're going to talk about the community manager. He's a G. He's a top lad. Shout outs to Spitz. He's a oh man. I couldn't imagine being that guy. But just imagine being at the studio and knowing that this change was coming. And we should disclose it all, really, is Helldivers 2 stipulated in the Steam listing somewhere on the game that PSN account network was required. And this was out when the game came out. However, because it was optional, and they didn't mention it at all to players in between, they weren't like, hey, this is coming. They were like, no, this is here. In about a week's time, you won't be able to play the game. If you don't do this, it's a completely different way. They went about it in the worst way that they could have done it. I reckon if they came back, if they rewound a couple months and said, hey, just letting you know that this is a part of the game, PSN account linking will happen.
But this wasn't out of nowhere though. Obviously, they're capitalizing on the success of the game, but at the same time, the CEO said, we knew about this 6 months ahead of the game's launch.
Yeah, but they didn't say anything.
But they didn't say anything. So they're like, oh yeah, my bad.
And it was just a bit of fine print that's I don't know. I did a story on it. Reese might be able to pull up the thing, pull up an image of it if he can find it. Of it saying that a PSN account link is required on the game, but no one reads that. No one goes and scrolls down.
Yeah, but they also said as well that or the CEO said that it was outside of their controllers and it's not their decision.
Yeah, it was the publisher.
That was like a mandate. So obviously, the game was in development for years. I think it was like close to 8 years.
Yeah, it was 8 years.
It was a labor of love, and they're just a developer studio, but they're funded by Sony. So one of the stipulations, it's not like they were, defiant in a sense. They were basically told that, okay, at some point during that process that, look, we're bringing PSN to PC. So you're going to have to, it's going to have to be a requirement that accounts are linked because you're on Steam.
Imagine sitting there. Imagine sitting at Arrowhead and just being like, we told them not to do this. We don't want to do this. And then you got to post that poor bloke that posted that wrote up that Steam blog post. He's like, he's just crying. He's like, we're going to kill the game.
I think that they were probably expecting some backlash, but
not this.
Not a tsunami.
No, not a tsunami. So that blog post happens. Community is in an uproar. Review bombs, it was
nobody's ever seen, unprecedented
carpet bombing. Yeah, for sure. I haven't seen a review bombing at this scale for I have no idea.
It was basically one of the best reviewed games on Steam, right?
Yeah,
one of the best, which means that it's overwhelmingly positive in terms of recent reviews and all-time reviews.
Yeah,
and the way that when something is review bombed, what Valve put in place was like recent reviews, so then you could tell, so you could differentiate whether or not something about a recent update either negatively or positively affected the game. When Cyberpunk 2077 did its big 2.0 update, or like the one of the last major ones.
Yeah, the release of the game.
Yeah, all the recent reviews were super positive, and you can see it on Steam. And but the all-time reviews were just mixed or just above average, and that slowly goes up.
Yeah,
but because this was unprecedented, what happened was immediately the recent reviews were overwhelmingly negative or in red. But then the super positive, general all-time reviews, within the space of another day dropped down to mixed. That doesn't usually happen that quickly because you're talking about hundreds of thousands of reviews.
It's a lot. Do you want to know what it is right now?
I think it's gone back up to mixed, hasn't it?
It is. The recent reviews is sitting at mixed, and all reviews is mostly positive.
Yeah.
And just for comparison, So on as of May 6th, 61,000 positive reviews and 19,000 positive reviews May 7, and we have almost 2,000 as of May 8th, which is today.
Yeah.
But we'll get into why that has completely done a 180 in a sec. So during this absolutely tumultuous weekend for Arrowhead, the CEO, Jonan Pilestead, is that how you pronounce that? Johan.
Yeah.
Johan Pilestead.
Yeah, Pilestead. I don't know. Pilestead. Yeah, I don't know. But
whatever. He was doing damage control, which was pretty rough because every time he posted on Twitter, he just got absolutely torn apart. He at first shifted, what felt like shifting the blame, but it was an insight into the inner workings of it all. And it was what we just touched on, is it wasn't Arrowhead's choice to implement this change. This was a completely publisher-oriented decision. So he went to Twitter and said, where was it? He doesn't have the final say. I think this was your article. Yeah, on a serious note, talking about solutions. What else did he say here? Your voice has been heard and I'm doing everything that I can to speak for the community, but I don't have the final say. So anyone that is really just, and I really do hope that there is no one just like going after Arrowhead, or did go after Arrowhead, because this really did feel like a publisher oriented decision. But maybe that's just because of our professions, we can see that.
Yeah. Like the other element, like the initial knee-jerk reaction was standard PC gaming, right? Which is like, you want us to sign up to your account and link our account and use, like if Ubisoft said you have to log into Ubisoft Play and have a separate app that sits on top of Steam. Like, remember they used to do that, and or EA, to play an EA game on Steam, you have to open up the EA app and sign into Origin. Whatever.
I hate EA and Ubisoft clients.
Everybody hates that, right? So this is a similar scenario, right? The initial knee-jerk reaction is like, why would I want to do that? And then it came out pretty much right after that the additional wrinkle, which basically was adding gasoline to the fire at this point, was that there's like 100 plus countries where the PSN is not available, where PlayStation consoles are not being sold, but Steam is available and Helldivers 2 is available, and then so the game would then be unplayable in certain countries unless
that's fraudulent.
Where people are like, well, just use a VPN, but like that shouldn't be the requirement to have to log in to some other country and create a PlayStation account and then use a VPN to log in and then authenticate, whatever, like it's just crazy. And then obviously that's a justifiable
it's reaction. Theft. It's theft. You can't sell the product and then be locked out of the product.
Yeah. So that reaction was justified. Was like, wait, hold on a second. You've got players that are just not going to be able to play the game anymore because of this requirement. And then their reaction was, "Oh, we're looking into alternatives." Like
they didn't think of that. That's what the. Wait, I need to pull up my news on this. That's what I think the community manager said that. No, I just typed Helldivers.
Yeah. I was openly unaware how many countries didn't have the ability to have a PSN account when I made that statement. That's what the community manager said.
Yeah.
Deeply regret implying that it was so easy for everyone to just sign up and not have to worry about. It's absolutely not our intention to force people to break Sony's terms of service or just not play the game if they're in a restricted region. There needs to be a better solution.
Yep, that's exactly right. They didn't think of that. They didn't think, where is Helldivers 2 available? Where is the PSN network available? And I'm not saying Arrowhead didn't think of that. I don't think that's their responsibility. I think that's Sony's responsibility. They're the publisher. They need to cross-track where Steam is available and where their network is available.
Yeah.
So I think that was, like you said, what you did was a good summary in terms of it did start with just this annoying thing that PC gamers are just getting upset over 5 minutes of an account sign up.
Yeah.
No, that's typical PC gamer stuff. But then they found out that people were getting ripped off or were going to get ripped off. And then that was the straw that broke the camel's back. That's opened the floodgates for the negative reviews. And it just piled and piled and piled. And luckily,
like, to be honest.
Yeah, go on.
Oh, actually, no. We'll go into the
solution,
the happy ending.
The ending?
The happy ending, or
the happy ending. Yes, right. Yes, it is a happy ending. So all of this, I'm just looking at there's 43.7 million views on the PlayStation Twitter post. It's so many views. It's so many. So all of this obviously caught the attention of Sony. It would have been shocking if it wasn't. And they come out on May 6th and say, Helldivers fans, we've heard your feedback on the Helldivers 2 account linking update. The May 6th update, which would have required Steam and PlayStation Network account linking for new players and for current players beginning May 30th, will not be moving forward. We're still learning what's best for PC players, and your feedback has been invaluable. Thanks again for your continued support of Helldivers 2, and we'll keep you updated on future plans.
I at least applaud them that.
I
mean, the thing is, like
they fell on their sword.
Man, this is so much. This is basically should be the poster child for like how quickly something can just evolve online in terms of like a story or an announcement or some sort of decision, and then not only that, because like if you look at like how long it took Sony to respond and say no, we're not going to do that anymore. It's only a few days, really. Yeah. But the thing is, those few days it was just wild. It was basically a wild ride that like basically transformed your perception of Helldivers 2 if you were following the story.
Yeah, no, for 100%. Like, it just showed how dedicated of a community it in some ways it is good for Sony and Arrowhead, because it shows they have a passionate gaming community. They've cultivated They've created a game that people care so much about. And, you know, there is a certain percentage of people that just like to bandwagon and just jump on the negative hype train. Like, everyone wants to see success stories kind of fail in some sad way, which is sad in itself. But I would say 80% are genuine, like, people that were concerned about it, people that were gamers, that actually playing the game. And so in some way, and I think it was one of the CEOs of Arrowhead, a Twitter post from the CEO of Arrowhead, he said he was impressed by, like, I think I just closed the article. He said he was impressed by the community.
I'm impressed
that
by
he's
the
created.
Willpower of the community and your ability
I think that's great.
Collaborate. And he thanks Sony and PlayStation for quickly making the decision to leave it as optional. Now, here's the thing, like, the solution, I mean, obviously hindsight is everything, right? But the solution was pretty simple. It's like, instead of mandating it, make it an incentive, right? So, like, the other part of the story, which you'll touch on in a second, is like, what does this mean for future PlayStation games? But, like, if Sony is hell-bent, well, not hell-bent, but wants to bring the PlayStation Network to PC, wants to integrate its community PlayStation, so PlayStation encompasses console and PC, just like Xbox does, and we discussed this in the previous episode. But how they could have done it was very simple, is just say, link your account, get
one skin. If you gave me one gun skin, I would have done it.
You get a skin and you get like 500 space bucks to spend on one of the upgrades or packs or whatever.
Would have done it in a heartbeat. Wouldn't have said boo about it.
And not only that, like, this will allow, and then you have a note there to say that, no, this will allow you to use the same profile or the same record, you know, your character on PC and PlayStation. Yeah. And if you wanted to, if you own it on PC and you want to buy it on PlayStation and you don't have it on PlayStation, you will get like a special discount and you can get on PlayStation and carry your progress across. You know, like, there's just incentives.
All of those are great ideas.
You know, and it's just like, okay, should I link the account? It's only going to take me 5 minutes. I get, like you said, you get a skin straight away. And then
you need to bribe us.
You get like 10% of the audience. And if it's a cool skin, you jump in the game and then you ask somebody, where'd you get that skin? Oh, I just did the PlayStation account linking. Oh, we'll go do that.
That's easy. I
They
can
would
do
have got
that.
millions of
Yeah, but also, and the most important point in that would be to, yes, incentivize it, but make sure it's optional to regions around the world that don't have access to the PSN network. That's a non-starter in my book, and
yeah.
because then you want as many you want as many Helldivers 2 players as possible. So to just cut out those potential gamers or gamers that already have bought the game is crazy. But what you were saying before about what does this mean for the future of PlayStation games coming to PC? I don't think this is going to stop them making it mandatory. I think they're just doing it for this game because it's already
kicking
established.
the can down the road. Yeah. Basically
Because
just like
Sony is still going to want to connect the Steam users, PC gamers onto the PSN network. They just can't do it they can't make it mandatory for Helldivers 2 because the game already got popular. Like they missed the boat. If it was mandatory at the start of the game, they'd be laughing because they'd have 3 million or so, or however many million PC gamers now connected to the PSN network. But for the next Helldivers 2 game, well, whatever the new online thing that Sony comes out with, because they will come out with something, I bet you it'll be mandatory because they're not going to want to miss the boat.
Yep.
What do you think?
And no, I agree. And it also if you look at Xbox and you go, Xbox has more monthly users than PlayStation. And you go, well, okay, but PlayStation outsells the Xbox 3-1, PS5 versus the Series X. Conservatively, or at least 2-1, but
at least 2-1,
3-1. Yeah. But Xbox is counting PC gamers, it's counting console gamers, it's counting now Activision gamers, people on Battle.net, people on playing Candy Crush. So they got hundreds of millions of active users, right? Every month. World of Warcraft players.
Yeah.
Sony sees that and they're like, well, in terms of users, we can only account for who's using the PlayStation Network, and who's using the PlayStation Network now is only on PS5 and PS4. So sure, we're bringing games to PC, and that's an extra few million sales, which is great, more money. But it's all about you. Like, I mean, it's not. It's all about customers, right, and having them in your network.
Yeah, these are the figures you show shareholders to.
Exactly.
Look how many more people Sony. Of course, it's a business, but they want to do year on year.
It's an ecosystem.
Increases, and they like the PSN network growing. I'm sure that is part of shareholders' questions to the company. It's like, how many more users have you grown the network? Oh, not much. Why don't you get on PC? Oh, do you know what would be a good idea? Let's just make it mandatory for Helldivers 2's popping off. Let's make it mandatory right now to get some users onto the network. And then they get slapped, their hand gets slapped away by the long arm of the PC gaming community. But I bet you they're sitting around in their boardroom going, okay, for the next one, whatever, hopefully we do have another Helldivers 2 like game that comes out that's as big. It will be mandatory. We're not missing out on these users.
Like if this was there at the start, like maybe a few people wouldn't have played the game out of protest, right? But if everybody was playing the game, right?
Yeah. The hype will get people to do it.
Right. And you're just there and you're like, okay, I have to link this account. Okay, all right, I'll do that.
Yeah,
quickly. Done. And
done. You're excited to get into a new game with your friends. You do an account, just making an account wouldn't stop me. I wanted to drop in with my boys.
You can't do it like.
And I get a free skin, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I get a free skin and some V-Bucks.
Yeah.
Laughing. You need to bribe the PC gaming community and ride the hype if you want us to do something like that. Which is a really strange hill to die on. But it's kind of funny. So I think for future Sony releases on PC, they are going, and if they do, because Helldivers 2 was the first dual release, like where it came out on PS5 and PC at the exact same time.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There'll be another one of those because this is such a success story. So I think it's really going to, it's going to become mandatory in the next game, whatever that is. And that brings us into the next story. Because of the Helldivers 2 explosion, the developer for Ghost of Tsushima,
which is out on PC in about a week or so,
which is coming, because people started to look like, oh, what's Sony coming out and releasing on PC next? Am I going to have to sign up to that as well? And so the developer...
This is the game that's introducing the PlayStation Network overlay and trophies and stuff like that. So you can tell, like, you know, that would have been added to Helldivers for sure.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
As well, like
that's for sure.
PSN Network, the overlay and trophies and stuff. Yep.
Yeah, so the developer comes out. I'm just trying to get the name. What is it called?
Sucker Punch.
That's it. I knew it was a movie name. Like, you know that movie Sucker Punch? I was just trying to think who directed that. But
Snyder.
Yeah, that's right, Snyder. Yes, he did. Yes. Ghost of Tsushima director's cut is releasing on May 16th, and like you said, it will be bringing a bunch of PlayStation features, the overlay and stuff like that. And the developer comes out and says it will not require a PSN account to be linked. However, it will for online play.
Yeah, the Legends co-op mode. And that makes sense because they're integrating it into the game a lot more than just the Helldivers 2, which it wasn't built into the game. So with Ghost of Tsushima, they said it's like cross-play with PlayStation co-op with, like, you're connecting to the same server. So like you're probably... and that's why you got the PlayStation Network overlay with friends list and stuff. So you would actually like co-op with friends through that list, I think, is the way it's going to work.
That makes sense.
And it's like a co-op mode, and so like that's how they're treating it. They're treating it kind of very much like a PlayStation game on PC, which is not how Helldivers 2 plays. Like
this is more of a single player game. Like, of course, there's going to be.
You don't need it for the single player stuff. You don't need to sign in. Yeah.
No, you don't, and they made that clear. But yeah, look, what a ride that Helldivers 2 was. I think it's a testament to the PC gaming community. I mean, banding together and trying to get what they want. And I really hope more developers look at that as like you said at the start, a case study for listening to the player base and what they want. All right, let's move on to something else. Did you want to go to the Apple stuff?
Yeah. So overnight, well, for us in Australia anyway, Apple had their latest event product launch, and it was for the new iPads or iPad Pro specifically. And with that, they announced their latest chip processor, the M4 chip. And this is their second generation chip to use TSMC's cutting edge 3 nanometer process. So this is like, still the most advanced chip out there in terms of consumer facing, something you can buy in a product. And so what makes this M4 chip different? Well, one of the main things is obviously AI, right? Apple's coming out to say it's their fastest neural engine ever. AI performance of 38 TOPS, which is actually only slightly faster than, well, it's only a little bit faster than Intel's Core Ultra mobile chip and AMD's current, Phoenix Point, or their current AI chips, not their ones that are potentially coming out soon. So it is like a capable AI chip. But outside of that, it's what powers the new iPad Pro, and it's got a GPU with hardware-based ray tracing, hardware accelerated mesh shading, a brand new way of doing cache stuff. Some of the stuff that was in the M3, so it seems like very similar GPU-wise, but this is like brand new for an iPad. So in terms of like iPad GPU power, it's pretty powerful. And it's a 10-core processor, 4 performance cores, 6 efficiency cores, and I don't know why that was hard, but but the big thing is... Don't get me
started on saying words wrong, mate. I know I say so many wrong.
But it's cool. I mean, it's Apple, so this is how they, we discussed this last time with M3. So how does Apple say it performs? Well, they say, apart from the AI neural engine being its most powerful yet, they said that this new M4 chip is 1.5 times more powerful than the M2 chip.
Oh, good. Yep.
So it's obviously not comparing it to the M3. It's
Yeah.
comparing it to the M2. And
That's what I'm interested in, though. See
yeah, I know. But the reason why they do that is
I
because,
want to know how much better is it than the last one.
yeah, I know. But the M2 is what's in the current iPad Pro, so it kind of at least makes sense because they're debuting it in the iPad Pro.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So, but one of the cool things is they say it's, if you look at it as like for like, the new M4 delivers the same performance as the M2 using half the power. If you were to cap the performance at the same, it can do the same using half power. So it is definitely way more efficient.
Is it thinner as well?
Yeah. So the iPad...
This is 5.3 millimeters thick.
5.1 for the 13-inch.
That's thin, man. That's thin.
That is ridiculous.
I want to hold that.
This thing is a beast, right? But this is why... But this, like the M4 chip doesn't excite me as much as this one feature for the new iPad. And this is the killer feature. It's OLED display. Now, Apple calls it the
first
Ultra
OLED.
Retina XDR display, because that's what they love doing. But
isn't this Apple's first OLED?
yes, but what they've done? They've
What'd they do?
basically combined two OLED panels. So they've figured out a way to combine two. So essentially what they've got is that they call it tandem OLED technology, where it's two panels in one. And because it's two panels in one, they can do sub-millisecond control over the color and luminance of each pixel. So there's double the pixels because there's two essentially panels. And basically, on overlaid.
Okay.
And you know what this means? But this is where it gets cool, is that then they can get full screen 1000 nits brightness for SDR and HDR
SDR.
content. Mm-hmm. Peak brightness is 1600 nits. So like when people talk about nits, they usually talk about peak brightness, right?
And
so
this
like
thing's 5.3 millimeters thick.
Yes, and it can hit 1000
How?
nits for SDR on an OLED panel.
How doesn't it get too hot?
I don't know. Like maybe
Does it have
these things are going to
graphene
melt and
cooling?
there's going to be a controversy we're talking about. We'll come back in next week. It's about iPad Pros are melting or something.
It must have how the gaming monitors that are using OLED are implementing
they got the
graphene
graphene and stuff like that.
for
It must
heat
have
dissipation?
it would have a graphene layer for sure. It'd have
It
to
would
have
have
something.
to.
But
Wow.
it's bananas, right? Like imagine how not only is it the thinnest tablet, or it's the thinnest device that Apple has ever created in terms of portable device. This is thinner than any MacBook, iPhone. I think maybe even like the iPad Nano or the iPod Nanos from like 20 years ago, maybe, which were like those tiny little music players, if you remember.
They call it
When
a
you were a kid.
breakthrough in technology for the Ultra Retina XDR display.
Yeah, it is, because it's tandem OLED technology that they've developed. So and they reckon that because everything is so much brighter and you still get like more detail and like the motion clarity is increased because you get all the stuff from OLED as well. So it's basically, which is weird because.
So is that double the pixel count? Is that
I don't know.
Would be
Like
the
I need
number
to, like,
in the same footprint, double the pixel count in the same display size.
I just think it I mean, this story only just dropped overnight, so like I'm only going by like Apple's press release for how and what I've read out there is that they're just basically stacking two OLED screens, but like
Does that mean double
so
the
like I think it
pixel
pairs with the
size?
specific type of glass that they're using. It's like
Ooh.
nano texture glass. So like maybe
Ooh.
there's like a layer of that glass in between each panel. But the thing is, like, I don't understand like how this is not, because like the price for this new iPad Pro, obviously the basic model, most basic model, 11-inch, whatever, it's only starting at like $1,200 US, which is, it's all expensive, right? But it's not ridiculous, because this is what I'm not talking. This is like the Pro model, so this is with the M4 chip and the OLED panel. And if you're talking like two OLED displays like stacked on top of each other,
That's expensive.
like how, like I thought it would be way more expensive. So like how it does it, like specifically, like, you know, I don't know, like how, like technically, like how it works. I'll be fascinating to know. And like once if there's like a full breakdown on how it works, I'm going to be searching for. We'll post in the show notes, and I'll post a follow-up story as well.
Yeah, definitely. I'm interested in that because if that technology is
If
the
this
direction of OLED, like maybe this is a new
do it for
route?
TVs.
Yeah, do it for gaming monitors.
Because the way like so like the top OLED panels for like a TV or WQD OLEDs and stuff like that, you can get to about 700 nits on SDR, maybe like 600 usually, around about that.
If you're lucky,
because that's full screen.
It's usually typical 250.
Yeah, typical 250. Yeah, for SDR. And that's just for full screen brightness, right? That's the measurement of like how bright can the screen go and sustain that. And what Apple's doing is that they're taking two of them and then doubling the brightness to say that, well, you can do 1000 nits full screen. Because usually that sort of brightness for an
continuous?
OLED, even for like a QLED would be,
They're
just
worried
peak
about
brightness.
burning?
It's got 1600 nits peak brightness. That's the peak brightness. So that's like if you're watching like a fireworks video, like
What? Yeah.
then there'll be those flashes or like an explosion or like a movie, or whatever. Those flashes will be able to hit up to 1600 nits if it's HDR, and they'll just be in like in that small section. But uniform brightness is like it's going to be like up to 1000 for like SDR.
I want to hold one of these.
Yeah, I want to see one too.
This is cool.
Yeah.
This is a I'm guessing the use case for this will be the image that you have on screen in your article. Video editing, because this isn't like it's going to be video editing, photo editing, it's USB-C, right?
Yeah, music production, the works, right?
Yeah, do you know what you could do with a screen like this where it's so bright is potentially carry one in your camera bag. I'm a camera guy for sure, and I've always wanted a way to be able to take photos, and I hate editing them on my phone, like with the color and stuff like that. And if I had an iPad and it was you said 13 inches?
Yeah, 11 and 13.
That's not too bad. Yeah. 11 and 13. I can have that in my backpack, USB-C to USB-C from my iPhone 15 into the new
USB 4 Thunderbolt.
Or even AirDrop that if I wanted to. And then bam, I'm editing on the go, and then I can post from there as well. Because it's so bright, I would be able to do that outside during the day.
And you've also got OLED color accuracy as well.
Yeah.
And you got the pure contrast. It's like you got all the benefits of OLED with
6K. I just read that.
Yeah, it's a 6K.
You got
display.
6K in 13 inches.
It's insane.
What is the UI gonna look like?
Well, obviously, like
it's got to be blown up to. It's got to. I would like to know the scaling. It would be like at 300, 400%.
Oh yeah, 300-400%.
Easily in 13 inches. That's like this teleprompter for 6K. What? I need to know how this tech works.
Yeah. Like I don't know, like it's basically that's how they've. Yeah, so it's a breakthrough for OLED displays, and what I'd love to see is like this on like a TV or a monitor or something like that. But if this is the way that it's going, and apparently, looking at an additional article now that it was developed with LG and Samsung.
Oh wow, the two big dogs teamed up,
and it cost $3 billion.
$3 billion.
Reportedly, this is not confirmed. People are reporting that that the R&D on this OLED display was about $3 billion.
Oh, it's got to be an industry standard then. It's got to be the new one. It's got to be a new kind of industry standard. Like you don't spend $3 billion on the R&D and then not plan to roll it out to your entire lineup.
No. As well, it's like
it's not Apple. It was Samsung and LG spent $3 billion together. Is that?
That's what we're saying. Yeah, but I think Apple would have bore the brunt of the cost. I think it was specifically so. Like I think you're particularly like this is not going to end with the iPad Pro, but I think this is like
the new iPhone.
Like with anything, it's like like the iPhone had like introduced X chips and stuff like that. And now this is adding the M4. So this is This is their first OLED product, and they may have like with anything Apple, they may have 6 months before we start to see it on a competing company's tech, or it could be a year. Who knows? But as long as there aren't any, like side effects.
Yeah, of course.
By having by stacking
that's a lot of heat, dude. That's a lot of heat.
2 OLED displays. Yeah, I know. Like, I mean,
1600. I get hot sitting in front of mine.
They only just got like the current OLED stuff under control heat wise.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, like with the graphene.
They had to get new technology to cool the suckers down. The graphene.
So now they got to worry about 2. But the thing is, the benefit seems incredible, right? Imagine having a desktop that could hit that brightness, or a TV, like in a well lit room. Like, when we were at the Samsung event, it's like, well, or even when I was reviewing the 8K TV, it's like when it's in a brightly lit room, the OLED, it just looks dim. Like you need to be like, it works best in a darker room.
Yeah, it does.
OLED monitors, all OLEDs just look better in darker environments. Yeah. And then you've got something like the Switch OLED and the Steam Deck OLED, right? And they're beautiful displays, beautiful. But if you're out in bright daylight, right, it's like, I can barely see this thing, right?
Yeah, you're playing your game like that.
Yeah. I mean, in the best of times, like back in the days, you couldn't even use like a phone really in bright sunlight. You'd have to be like, covering.
Yeah. I remember using my phone like this.
Under your jumper.
And just for the audio listeners, I've got my shirt around my nose and I'm looking under my shirt.
But yeah, like the goal isn't to be able to just stand out in the sun with your super bright OLED display, right? The goal is to be in a bright lit room, a darkened room.
Yeah.
A mid-bright room, whatever, or just outdoors on the porch, or like, in a car, blah, blah, blah. Like, doesn't matter where you are, the screen is going to just look the same.
Yeah.
That's the goal. And it seems that that's what they were waiting for. At least Apple was before they introduced OLED. And this is an impressive way to do it, though. Like, I was blown away when I saw that. I'm like, what? Dual OLED?
I'm blown away.
Tandem OLED, 2 screens, 1,000 nits? Like
6K in 13 inches?
Yeah.
You're lying to me somehow. I'm like, how are you doing that? But yeah, we'll keep our eye on this for sure.
Yeah, and obviously as more, because this was only just announced, so obviously there might be, by the time this episode drops in a few days, there might be more information in terms of like how the technology works. But we'll follow that up potentially next episode, or just keep an eye on Tweaktown anyway. We'll be following it up with stories, because this seems to be. Could be like the next evolutionary step for OLED.
Absolutely.
For gaming monitors, TVs, and tablets like the new iPad Pro.
Yeah. If I was to put money on it, I think this is as soon as you told me that they spent $3 billion on R&D for this, they have to be thinking this is the next.
Yeah. This is like the next thing. Like they're going to phase out. Like, this will come to their iPhone, their next iPhone. This will come to MacBooks. This will come to like their Macs. Like their Pro, all their Pro stuff will switch to this sort of display. You don't develop.
I'm thinking it'll go further than that. Like if they're able to squeeze that many pixels, I reckon it'll be picked up by gaming monitors as well. Like why not? Why not TVs and gaming monitors? Squeeze more pixels into the same footprint with a double.
To be honest, like. With everybody releasing OLED panels, like, I mean, like with TVs, right? Like you can, if you wanted to make a TV and you had enough money, right? As long as you could put together like a chip and a board and, and Google OS or whatever it is, or Android TV, whatever, set it up, you can buy a panel you can choose, right? You can go like, oh, well, Samsung, I want to buy one of your QD OLED panels at this size to make my own TV. I want to buy this LG OLED panel. I want to buy like an LCD panel. Like you can get all these panels. So in like the last 12 months, as we've seen, like in the PC space, there's so many OLED displays from almost every display maker because they're able to obtain LG or Samsung panels because they're being mass produced. Now, we also know that Samsung and LG are major players in the display market. So like potentially like with Apple here, they could be saying that, well, our next gen gaming monitors are going to be using this tech, but only our next gen gaming monitors. You know what I'm saying? Like then like, they could be like, well, we're going to come out first with it. like it would just be like a case of like, like with Apple here, like if you got this brand new tech.
Oh,
you don't want
you think it's
everywhere.
patented tech, like they've got the IP on this?
Well, yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
I think Samsung and LG will release it first, either in the TV space or the gaming monitor space, before we see these displays in like an ROG monitor or a
Yeah.
or
Oh,
a
definitely. Yeah.
Gigabyte
No,
or
for sure.
MSI or whatever, or ViewSonic, like Philips, all these
Yeah.
every company that's making OLEDs now,
Mm.
AOC and all these like random everybody has an OLED monitor now.
Everybody.
Yeah,
I love
and they're
it.
all like really good panels.
Yeah,
they've
they are.
gotten really, really good. But the thing is, like, how do you, the next step would be like being able to hit this sort of brightness, especially for HDR.
Sure. Yeah, that is impressive stuff from Apple right there.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we'll keep our eyes on that. Did you want to go over to Bethesda, Microsoft, and the Elder Scrolls?
Yeah, the crazy Xbox stories.
Yeah. Did you want to start with your story, or did you want to start with the layoffs?
We'll start with this kind of like ties into it. Like, so we've talked about like, how popular Fallout is and stuff like that because of the TV show. And with Bethesda Game Studios being their main studio, this is the studio that made Fallout 3, Oblivion, Elder Scrolls Oblivion, Morrowind, Skyrim, Fallout 4. One team, right? And they, every 3 or 4 years they come out with a game. But their last game was the original sci-fi IP Starfield from last year, which they're still updating and stuff like that. Came out to decent reviews, but lately it's just been like people waiting for the game. It's got there's ways to improve it because it's not.
Absolutely.
It just needs to be improved. But what that means is that game's been in development was in development for like 6-7 years, right?
Jesus.
Since Fallout 4. And so their next game is Elder Scrolls 6. So it's Skyrim's sequel, right? And Skyrim is already 10 years old. And then after that, they're going to do Fallout 5. Now, if it takes them 4 years to make the next Elder Scrolls, conservatively, because games take longer now. So that's, 2028 for the next Elder Scrolls. And then if it takes them 4 years to make Fallout 5, that's 2032. That's like 8 to 10 years to get the next Fallout game. And Fallout is more popular now than it's ever been. So this is a problem, right? And Microsoft would know this as well.
Definitely.
And in a recent interview, the head of Bethesda Game Studios, Todd Howard, said, yes, the games take a long time, but they are finding ways to increase their output. They don't want to wait that long. That's never the plan. But obviously, quality and stuff like that, they don't want to just rush things out. But they're aware. And, even when people mention Obsidian, who developed Fallout New Vegas, which is considered one of the better Fallout games, Todd Howard came out and said they did an amazing job with New Vegas. That's a game that we published. So, there is it leaves a door open for them to work with another studio to potentially, strike while the iron is hot to say, like, even if it's not Fallout 5, it's like, I'd say Fallout, insert this city or whatever, Fallout wherever. And it's like a new Fallout game that comes out in a couple of years or whatever the case is. And the Fallout TV show is in its 3rd or 4th season and, it's still super popular and it will be a huge major event.
Well, that to me, Bethesda should do something based on the TV show.
Yeah. Or even like a
TV
show game.
It's a little bit of a tangent, but when I was watching Game of Thrones, I always wanted, because I was such a big fan and I followed that for like 10 years of my life. That show was from when it came out, because I'm a big swords and sandals guy. All of the Lord of the Rings stuff behind me should prove it. I followed that, and when I was really getting into it, like after season 3, I was saying to my mates, I wish HBO released like a playable season or episode, and that I could play on the computer or on a console or something like that, where I felt immersed in the world. That's how much I loved it. And every new episode or season that came out, they would release this content for players to enjoy. There's a couple of ways you can do it. You can do it when, like, every week when the episode comes out, there's a 15-minute thing that you can play, or at the end of the season, they let you play the events in the season, which ties you over until the next one comes out. Like, you know, you can still be playing Game of Thrones, immersed in the world, in the events of the last season, waiting for the new one to come out. I've always wanted a studio developer and a TV show to partner and do this idea with it all prepared. Like, it's all laid out. All the content's made, the games are made, the TV show is already made, and then you just slowly roll it out. Imagine the hype of Helldivers 2 if there was a TV show at the same time. That was good, though. It wasn't just some garbage TV show.
It was like Starship Troopers, but in TV form.
And from that content of the TV show, you can make references, not like corny references, but make it obvious that the two are connected. So it means like when you're, you know what I mean? Like, it's like these are two separate mediums that have never been bridged and a hype train created at the same time. And I want to be a part of that.
Is the production cycles of games and TV shows are very, very different. And like you said, like the best way to do it would be to make sure that they were all done before you roll the thing out.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And you're right. That's the only way it'll work.
Yeah.
The only other, I guess, comparison to be would be like games developers and games that have tried to follow the episode structure. You know, like if you look at narrative games like Telltale's games where they did like the episode releases of like Walking Dead, and they even did like a Game of Thrones one where it's like every 2 months, whatever, the new episode comes out and you play through it and it continues the story.
Yeah, I remember reporting on it when Game of Thrones was out. They were massive. People loved them.
Some of those were pretty good, and the Game of Thrones one was actually pretty good. But there's a very specific type of game that's like an interactive movie as opposed to like a proper RPG or something like that. And then there was Remedy who tried to do Quantum Break, right? And the original plan for that game for Xbox was to have a TV show that aired and then game missions come out exactly like you said. But how it kept getting delayed or whatever happened. In the end, it was just released like a game. And basically you play the game and then it plays an episode of the show. And then you play more of the game, and then it plays the episode of the show. So it was this weird hybrid, right? Like it was like a Frankenstein monster. It needs to all be done
before it comes out.
Yeah, like it was just like a, you know, like it obviously whatever the best version of that or what the ideal was or what they were trying to do with that, like it didn't really come together. It was kind of just like, well, this is what we've got. You play like a few missions, an hour of a game, and then you watch like a 30-minute TV episode with actors, live action, and then you go back to the game. It was interesting. The game I would find that jarring, but the TV show wasn't good. That's the thing. Like the problem there was that the actual TV show just felt like a pretty cheap sci-fi channel, low budget. You know what I mean? Like had decent actors, but you know when something's like you're like, oh, yeah, this just looks like a TV show, you know what I mean? Like
it's generic, But I've always wanted them. I've always wanted someone to do that because I think it would be awesome. I think it would link the gaming and the TV show communities, and if you hit the nail on the head, it would be massive. It would be huge. And I don't know I think it's too late for the Bethesda to do this, but if they created like a standalone kind of Fallout experience based on the TV show, I think that would work because the TV show is quite popular. But I'm thinking I don't know. I would like to see them change it up a bit, and you can tell me if this is too far left as a Fallout fan. They make it kind of like a Last of Us kind of experience in the Fallout world, because Fallout has always made open world. It's very with all of Bethesda's games besides like, is it Prey is a bit more linear.
That's very different though. I mean, Arcane,
that's a bit more linear, but like a more linear experience. What do you think about that?
Well, no, because like what Fallout really is, right? And what the show kind of captured in some way, which was the unknown or exploration. See, the reason why Fallout TV show worked is because it was what you call like a road movie, right? Like the Fellowship of the Ring, which is they come together and they're going somewhere.
Yeah, the journey.
And the stops are on the way are all unexpected. Like you know what the quest is, right? And Fallout games and Skyrim is the same, right? Like, you know, the Elder Scrolls, it's like Fallout 4. If you take that one, it's like you get out of the vault and you're looking for your child that was kidnapped. Fallout 3 is like you're following the footsteps of your dad. But like that's just the quest. That's not the stuff that makes it great. It's like the Fellowship of the Ring isn't great because they're on a quest to destroy the ring. It's because of the journey, right? And what makes the Bethesda games or Fallout specifically so great is that when you get a step out of the vault and you see and you're like, and you look around, you're like, I can go there, what's that? That looks like a ruin over there. And that's something over there. And you can decide to go there and you go there and you discover something new. It doesn't even, like, whatever it is, like there's environmental storytelling. You can tell like something bad happened here. You can read a note, discover raiders, loot, whatever it is, or even like a side quest, etc., etc. But that's the whole point, is that like that discovery and that exploration, which is one of the reasons why I bounced off of Starfield, because they removed the element that made their games.
Yeah, it was replaced with loading screens.
Yeah, and a linear experience takes away what the core of Fallout, which is really just a game about exploring the wasteland and finding your own story in the wasteland.
That's an interesting take.
And doing what you want. So it's like, and it's a very isolated experience. Like one of the appeals of it is just how dead the world is, and it's weird, but it's like you just explore like a ruin, and it's like, okay, and there's ghouls and stuff, and it's the bleak. It's very bleak, but it's like a fun.
Wouldn't you like to experience that?
But there are like
on a smaller scale, but still keeping the grandness. Like they can achieve more of a linear story or tell a linear story while making the world still feel big.
Yes.
Because like it is a very established world at the same time. I think there might be room for linear stories within it.
It'll just need to be more scaled back. So like if you like the way you would. The best way to do it would be just to have the scope, the size of like one of the Fallout 4 DLCs, like the Nuka World or the Far Harbor DLC, which like they take you to new locations that are like a fifth the size of the map, but it's all the good stuff just condensed. It's like, well, the story has 3 different endings, so you feel like there's choice. There's you can still go this way, that way, or that way. In each direction you go, there's something new. There's a different side quest. There's a different faction, or there's a different thing, and you don't have to complete it in this specific linear order. Like, you know, the non-linear way of like being able to explore everything, and you can still maintain that while still telling a compelling story in a more contained one. You just have to scale it down. Like that's the thing,
I agree.
You know, like when like games get just too big, like Assassin's Creed, Valhalla, and stuff like that, they just become like this huge. They're just too big, right? Like you can do that. You know, if you just condense it down and just have all the good stuff, like, you know, just get rid of the fluff. Like you don't need. You know, like it doesn't need to be like the biggest thing in the world for it to be open. Like, you know, the whole idea of like open world got, I think, people or some developer studios or gamers like lost track of what the meaning is. Like the meaning isn't like to make it the biggest icon-filled world that you can explore, and it's just, you know,
it's to make the richest.
Yeah, it's the illusion of freedom and stuff like that. Like you can have like one of the best gaming experiences in a small contained space.
Yeah, I think the goal of making an open world game at its one of the most fundamental aspects is to make it a rich environment. And you can do that through content that makes it feel older as well, which is one of my favorite things. I saw a lot of that in Cyberpunk. That's a lot of, you know, NPCs feel like they've been there for a while. Like they've been living this life, like drug addicts on the street and all of that. That's or established
have
gangs
schedule, right? Like it seems like they're living their life.
That's it. So you think there's going to be another Fallout DLC to tie us over?
Well, they're probably just going to try and get something into Fallout 76 because that's their online Fallout game. That's the one that's active now, and it has a lot of players still.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, obviously, like that game had a disastrous launch. But if you looked at, like, I mean, they've added so much to the game. Like, they got rid of like the stupid thing about having no NPCs in this gigantic open world.
Mm.
But like that game's actual open world design is probably one of the best for an online game, because wherever you are in that game, you'll know where you are in terms of geographics. You'll be like, oh, I'm near the ski lodge, near this mountain. That's like, there's nothing that's just outpost, bandit camp,
Right.
forest this, that, like, copy paste, different, like, here's, and it's not just different skins. It's not just like, oh, this is the snow region, this is the forest region, and it's just the same things in those different regions. This is like different regions have different like backstories and things like that.
Oh,
And that's
so
what
it's very in depth.
that's what they're good at. And that's what like Starfield didn't have. Like that's the problem, is that like you have some of the best designers like creating these like maps that feel like real places to explore. And then you decide not to do that.
And Starfield, everything felt barren and wastelandy.
Yeah,
but this kind of
generated.
ties into our next story as well with Bethesda. It's Microsoft closing multiple Bethesda studios in a new round of devastating cuts.
This is pretty tragic news for
in one fell swoop. How many people? And we don't have we don't have a specific figure on how many people just got laid off. But how many do you think, based on the studio, the 4 studios that are now closed? How many people?
At least.
It's got to be at least 1,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the 4 studios are
feel bad for them.
Arcane Austin, who developed Prey, you mentioned. It's such a great sci-fi game. But they also developed Redfall, which was a pretty major flop from last year. Tango Gameworks, who developed Hi-Fi Rush, which is one of the only Xbox games, first-party games from 2023 last year that received critical acclaim, was nominated for several
Switch.
awards, and then they just recently brought it to PlayStation and Switch.
Yeah.
And then also Alpha Dog, which is make mobile games like Mighty Doom, and Roundhouse Studios, which is just one of their support studios. But they're apparently being absorbed by ZeniMax Online, who make the Elder Scrolls Online.
Yeah.
But wherever way you slice it, this is, I mean, the response from the industry and Xbox fans and gamers is pretty unanimous, as in it's being viewed as a very disappointing.
Yeah, it is.
It's generating a lot of, I mean, I wouldn't say like anger, but like, but anger is probably the right word in terms of like, why, like, confusion as well is another one. Because you've got like studios with like pretty good pedigrees, like Arcane Austin. It's like, sure, Redfall was a miss, but Prey and the DLC for Prey, which was basically, it's called Moon Crash. It was like a roguelike mode for that game. Probably it was really, really good. It was just like this cool game concept where you just relive you do the same thing over, and it's like different, it evolves as you play and stuff like that. But anyway, that was like a really cool DLC. And you got Tango Gameworks, who did Evil Within games, survival horror, and Hi-Fi Rush, and they're closed now. So it's like whatever that team, they could have done like a sequel to Hi-Fi Rush. It's like, why bring it to, and then people are like, did you bring that to PlayStation and Switch? And now everybody, not everybody, but like, gamers on those platforms are enjoying the game and going, oh, Tango Gameworks, this is a really cool game. It's like, well, now you've closed them.
Yeah, now they don't exist. So we should talk about why Microsoft has done this, at least according to them.
There's like a,
Mike, is it Mike Booty? Yeah, Matt Booty. Matt Booty. So an internal email by Matt Booty, who's the head of Xbox Game Studios. It was obtained by IGN, I'm pretty sure. And he gave a lot of reasons, but the main takeaway is this is a reprioritization of titles and resources. And it just means a few teams will be realigned to others, so developers going to other studios. Like you just mentioned, Alpha Dog Studios being absorbed by ZeniMax. And unfortunately, that means some of our colleagues will be leaving us. And just to be clear, this is it's not Bethesda. These are the development studios under Bethesda, which is owned by Xbox.
Xbox, yeah.
Yeah. Just for the listener there. Yeah, this is a sad day because that is, I think, if I was to take a guess, probably 2,000 plus people.
Yes.
I reckon.
As well, like, it's also, I mean, it's obviously like an internal email, and obviously they would know that it's going to be leaked, or, you know, that this is going to be read by people outside the company if it's going to everybody in the Xbox game studios, which is thousands and thousands, you know, 10,000, 20,000, however many employees. But the thing is that it's like requires us to look at across to identify the opportunities that have best positioned us for success. You know, like you know, it's like corporate speak, right? And it's like
absolutely
we have to identify and restructure and position ourselves to hit new heights, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But then somebody called out that wording and said, you know, this is like one of their Xbox, I think it's like Aaron Greenberg, who's one of the big people there at Xbox in terms of works with Phil Spencer and stuff like that. And, you know, like somebody said, like, what's a measure of success? Like Hi-Fi Rush.
Absolutely, yeah.
You know, like
critically acclaimed.
People loved it. People are playing it on PC as well. And now it's on Thingo. Like, is that not a success? And then the Aaron Greenberg says, no, by every metric that we use, that's a success. So this decision is, I mean, it's the latest in just a never-ending stream of studio closures and restructuring. You know, like Embracer Group was in free fall, and they closed a bunch of studios, and now they've sold Gearbox to Take-Two, and then Sony closed Sony London studio that was making VR games and stuff like that, like a couple months ago. And London studio was around for like since the PS1 era or something like that, right? So this is, you know, 20, 30 years, whatever it is. They closed one of the oldest Western studios.
Jesus.
And they even like shrunk, you know, Insomniac Games and sent God of War developers. Sony cut like 8,000 jobs or something like that. I can't remember how it was. 1,000, whatever it was.
Insomniac, you mean Spider-Man developers?
Yeah, they didn't close the studio, but like they
reduced their workforce.
They closed a few studios, and then everybody, like in every basically studio, lost like 50, 100 people or whatever.
Wow.
It was. And they cancelled a bunch of games, whatever the case is. And then like Xbox, you know, they canned like thousands of people late last year or whatever it was. And you know, Take-Two, like GTA developer, is culling people as well. And it's like, hold on, you're going to make the most money the world has ever seen with GTA 6.
Yeah.
Like, why do you need to? So like the confusion is like what's going on? Like if games are still super popular, right?
And take ages to develop. Why wouldn't you want more?
They're still making money and stuff like that. So like what's going on? Like why? Like is it like a?
I have no idea.
Some sort of weird course correction is happening where basically everything is like shrinking.
Yeah, I don't know if they hired a bunch of people out of COVID and then they were like, or these were people that were still on the books working from home. I'm not sure. I honestly don't have an answer. I don't know.
It could be as simple as like, you know, publicly traded companies, right? They saw this massive boom in the gaming divisions during COVID because everybody was playing games because they couldn't go outside. Generalization, but more or less that's what led to a massive surge in console sales and Steam accounts, new records broken every week, and massive hits came out every month. There was like some new game everybody was playing. And now if that's your perception after like a year and a half or almost 2 years of that, and that's growth, sustained growth, and et cetera, and you're a publicly traded company that you're beholden to shareholders, and the shareholders want to see that level of profit and revenue and growth every quarter, blah, 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 you know, usual capitalist stuff. And they're big wigs, like, you know, executives there at Xbox and Microsoft and Sony and, you know, Take-Two's board of directors. They're just saying, well, if we cull 1,000 jobs, we can keep this, you know, we can keep profits.
It's an easier way to keep profits up instead of making a better product.
And that could be as simple as that, right?
It could literally, and you know what? Occam's razor, it usually is.
And it has nothing to do with Hi-Fi Rush being a major success
That's an
in terms
example of it.
critically and think that, and also it has nothing to do with Redfall being a failure.
Yeah, because the service is staying on.
Yeah,
It's not like
it's
they're
like them saying, "Oh,
getting
well,
rid of the game."
The studio swung and missed, and so
Yeah.
Xbox is closing it because of that. Because no, it's not that, because you got two polar opposite thingos. You got Arcane that made a flop, and Tango that made a hit.
Mm. Yeah.
So it's just
It's just rough.
It's rough, exactly. Yeah,
It's just
and
rough for them. I feel for them.
And I don't think this is the last of these stories for the year.
No. What you said earlier with Xbox closing, I'll just give a specific on that. Furthermore, this is now the second wave of layoffs at Xbox Game Studios, with nearly 2,000 developers being fired from Activision Blizzard in January earlier this year. Earlier this year. This is only like 3 months ago, 4 months ago.
Activision Blizzard, yeah.
Yeah. That's another one. And that was after, the Microsoft
games as well. It's like, I don't understand. Like the problem with like this is that the Xbox community is like, well, you're so far behind Sony in terms of sales. Sony is spending big to get the big third-party games on PlayStation, and developers have an incentive to release their games on PlayStation first, right? Because it's the biggest audience. So it's like, Xbox has to like beg for Capcom to release Resident Evil on the Xbox almost. That's how it feels.
Yeah.
You got all these studios, and then you got like Game Pass, which you're pushing, and you got Hi-Fi Rush, which seems like the perfect Game Pass game.
Absolutely.
Redfall, even though it was a failure, it's a co-op game that's like perfect for Game Pass. You got these two studios making games that make sense in this ecosystem of PC and console and whatever it is you're trying to do, and bring them to PlayStation. But then if you close those studios, what's your plan going forward, right? Like,
are they all going to go to work on the new Fallout thing?
Yeah, aren't you going to make games for Game Pass anymore? Like
we're only working on the big dogs now.
Yeah, like that seems like a complete change of pace for them. But then also as well, like they can't, like Blizzard canceled their survival game, which could have been just because the game wasn't coming together. But they got rid of like you said, like 2,000 people at Activision Blizzard, and number of studios they closed at Toys for Bob studio that did the Crash Bandicoot remasters. And
I remember that.
It's like, yeah. So it's like you closed this studio that made these really good remasters, and I think, oh no, that was like a different studio that did the Tony Hawk ones. But anyway, like they made these Crash Bandicoot remasters, and you look at the properties that Xbox owns now. You own all of Activision IP. So even outside of that, like Spyro and stuff like that, you also own like Banjo-Kazooie, like with Rares, like classic game from the 90s, right? Late 90s. Like what if you got that studio that did these Crash Bandicoot remakes to make a Banjo game? They're like the things like, but no, like that studio closes, and you go, well, that seems like that would have been a good fit for Game Pass, or this model of you creating all this diverse library of titles.
Yes.
But like, and if you're saying like, no, we got to focus on what's successful, it's like, okay, so is id Software safe because they're making Doom? But does that make them safe? Like because people don't understand. They're confused. They don't know why.
Yeah.
These
don't play with my heart like that.
It's a tough decision. A hard to go out. Like, they all say the same thing. It's like, yeah, but why are you closing them?
Yeah, it really does seem like they're streamlining their studios out. Like they're really leaning out the number of studios. This is particularly Microsoft and Xbox. Like after their acquisition of Activision Blizzard,
yeah,
it seems like they are just removing any studios that they can afford to get rid of, and then that sucks for so many people.
Before Call of Duty, Activision made a whole bunch of different games, right? This is like, like they published, it was like Crash and Spyro, like, those family friendly games, but they did the Tony Hawks, they did Guitar Heroes. But in the last decade, they've just been doing out like separate from Blizzard. All they've been doing is just releasing Call of Duty games every year.
Yeah.
So is this
they became a cash cow.
Is just release Call of Duty games every year? Is that how you're going to make money?
It's just gross.
And that's it. And then maybe just get Bethesda just to do Fallout, Doom, and Elder Scrolls games on repeat, and Wolfenstein maybe, and that's it.
Imagine owning all of that IP and only releasing less than 10 games.
Yeah. I mean, they've dropped the ball. Like, it's like, how do you have like 30 studios and then still struggle to release more than 1 or 2 games a year?
Yeah, it's rough. Well, let's get into some more positive news, and we'll end the show on something that we have been talking about for many, many, many moons now, and that is the successor to the Nintendo Switch. Look, we finally have it, Costa. We have a release window.
We have an announcement for an announcement for an announcement.
We do have a trailer for a trailer for a trailer. Nintendo's president has confirmed.
I love how this message goes. I love how blunt the message is.
Yeah. The translation is just rough, right out the gate, rough. So we have a confirmation from the president of Nintendo that the company will be announcing its successor to the Nintendo Switch within this fiscal year. So it's coming. It's coming. And I reckon
crazy.
it'll announce October, November, and we'll get a release in March. Like exactly like the Nintendo Switch did 9 years ago.
Maybe January, February. Who knows? They could push it to the very end. At this point,
They could as well.
don't count on it. Because I love the line is like, it will be like in the translation, it will have been over 9 years since we announced the existence of the Nintendo Switch back in March 2015. That's a long console cycle.
That is such a long lifetime.
That
I even
could be-
wrote that in my article.
That could be the longest. Is that the longest?
I don't know. I said an incredible age for the console.
Because I think the NES, the Nintendo's very first console, was one of the longest, just because of like because at that point there was no video game industry, like the Atari boom, whatever crash, if you know how that kind of like went in the 80s. But anyway, so like they launched it in Japan and then it didn't come out to the US until 2-3 years later. This is back when, you know, like hardware and stuff like that wasn't moving at the pace that it is now in terms of like gaming hardware. Right. So like, let's say it came out like in 83 in Japan, like it didn't come out to the US until like 85, 86. And then it didn't come out to Australia until like 87. And then we didn't get the Super Nintendo until like 91, 92. So like, you know, if you look at it, there was like, you know, from when it was very first came out in Japan, it was probably like 8 years or something before the Super Nintendo came out. And that was probably Nintendo's longest cycle, but that was only long because it didn't become like a hit until like 4 years after it was out. You know what I mean? Whereas the Switch was a hit.
This might be their longest one. This could be the longest console.
This could be
cycle.
for any console cycle.
Yeah. Huh. Wow. Okay. So yeah, we do know when approximately Nintendo is going to unveil the Switch successor. A few of the recent rumors surrounding the console, and if you've been tuning in for the show, you definitely know that we're covering all of the recent rumors. The latest couple that are just worth mentioning are higher than 60 FPS gameplay. I'm presuming that is docked. And electromagnetic suction Joy-Cons with an 8-inch display. They're the latest in the
LCD
Switch
display.
2 rumors, but again,
No fancy iPad OLED on this one.
that would be awesome if they had one of those
It's
DXR
Nintendo. It's like-
displays.
Like Nintendo is like all about getting something affordable.
Yeah.
I was just looking at it. Yeah, so the longest traditional console generations were the PS4 and the Xbox One, because they were like 2013 to 2020. That was like 7 years. Those ones were elongated because of the PS4 Pro and the mid-gen, that they did that mid-gen refresh for the first time, the Xbox One X and that. So like they would, and then they kind of like push that back. But this will be, it'll probably be like 10 years.
Is that
between
from
the Switch and the Switch 2.
is that from the launch date?
Yeah, like launch dates. Yeah, so like November
Yeah.
2013 to like November 2020 for the PS4 to PS5. So 7 years.
Yeah, because the Nintendo Switch came out on March 2017. That's when it launched.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's when it launched. Like it
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, and then it
Yeah.
came out. But do you
so
think
that
they're
would
gonna-
be 7. That would be 7 years. So yeah, I think it will be 8
It'll be
years.
about the same. Yeah, it'll be about the same. But by the time it launches, though, it's not going to launch when they announce it.
Yeah, so it would be 2025 if I'm right, March 2025. So that would be 8 years.
Yeah.
So it will be the longest. If the Switch 2 comes out in March next year, it will be the longest.
Either way, it feels like it, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, it's ages ago I bought my Switch. It's weird to say that Super Smash Bros. Ultimate came out 6 years ago or something like that. It's bizarre. And I'm like, what? That's why I bought the Switch. I bought that for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate.
Yeah. And they said that they're doing their like usual summer showcase in June, but there'll be no mention of the Switch successor during that presentation.
Yeah.
It'll just be in the current Switch. So, and that goes by what the previous report was, that they're going to focus on, like 2024 was just going to be switched. I think the previous thing, they didn't say anything about the successor. So this is them saying on top of that. So if you take into account that they've already said like 2024 is just Nintendo Switch, don't expect anything else.
Yeah, you're right. Now I think the announcement will be in January.
So now they're saying that the announcement will come in the next financial year, but like they could still announce it at the end of the year. But like I think that's best case scenario. They're not, like, by saying it's not going to be at the June showcase means there's no reason for them to announce it in August. Like, why are you going to?
Yeah, you're right.
It's a weird time to announce something and then release it in the following year. Like, you don't show your cards at that point.
Yeah, no, January. Now that you said that and framed it like that, January does feel better. For them. Like they announced January, maybe even February, and they're like, it's coming out next month.
Or I
think they're going to do a March
announce
release
in like January, February, and then I think they're probably going to go for like a May launch, something like that. Go for like a summer launch. Yeah, but most likely it's going to be later in the year.
Okay.
Nintendo aren't beholden to launching a console like in November or at the end of, or like a new GPU generation like in November, or like, you know, at the end of the year, like Sony, Microsoft, Nvidia, and AMD, and whatever else, when they usually launch their stuff, their gaming stuff at the end of the year. Nintendo kind of like just do it whenever, March, June, September, like.
Nintendo is a different animal entirely.
Well, I mean, does this mean we're not going to be reporting on the Switch until we hear from Nintendo?
Oh no, there'll be more rumors.
Absolutely not.
Yeah, there'll be more rumors. Don't you worry.
Hopefully this means that the rumors will start kicking into high gear, because Nintendo have at least acknowledged that they will be talking about it.
True. Yeah, that's actually good for us. This is good for us. We'll get more rumors. I think that's about it. We're getting strapped for time. Thank you very much for listening to this week's episode of the Tweaktown Show. All of the stories that we've talked about in this week's episode are in the description below in a Google Doc. If you want more reading, hit on that Google Doc and then head on over to any of the links. Do you have anything to sign this episode off with, my friend?
If you're looking for something to play, go play Hades 2, which is now in early access.
Yes.
It's surprise dropped on PC. So basically, the developer Supergiant Games, the original Hades is one of the best games of all time. That's my opinion of, but I can do a lecture for like an hour and a half if you want.
On how good it is.
On how good it is. But yeah, so basically, like, was one of my most anticipated games for the year, but they didn't actually put a date on it. But then they just did some random technical test, like just out of nowhere, like about a week or so ago. And then just yesterday, like, I woke up and I checked and it's like, Hades is out now. I'm like, surprise drop. They just dropped it into early access on Steam. It's already gotten overwhelmingly positive reviews. The concurrent play count has already surpassed Hades, the original Hades' peak.
Wow.
And icing on the cake, because this is their second early access game, Hades 2 is launching with more content in terms of areas, bosses, weapons, and stuff like that than Hades had at launch.
Yeah,
when it was
Reese
1.0.
Put these GIFs on the Steam listing up on the YouTube video. They look sick. Yeah, no, that's awesome, man. I love surprise drops like that, and the art style to this looks wicked.
Yeah, I was playing it last night for a few hours, and it is so much, and it is very much Hades 2, but it has all the cool stuff. Like, if you love a roguelike, especially like something that is action based, so it's not a It's not a hack and slash. Like it is like you have to dodge and use your weapons, and then the key of the game is that basically as you go through each floor or each level or each room, you're given a boon or a reward, and whatever you pick is kind of like that'll be like, oh, that changes that ability, so then I'll start using that. And then if you get something else, then you'll be like, oh, then I'm going to play like this. So like the way you play evolves through each run.
That's sick. No, I have
so
to
like
check it
basically and like you're limited by your choices as well, so it's like, so there's incentive to try different weapons, and the way it does it, so that you're basically forced to like craft your build as you play, and then you find your own groove. Like you go, I do best if I go for like this type of damage, or if I go for like AoE type things, like that's usually my sweet spot. Like, and then you get like a perfect synergy between two abilities, and then you can just go, oh shit, I didn't even know you could do that.
That is
sometimes
wicked.
like, and sometimes like your choices are three things that you would never pick, and you're like, I guess I'll go that, and then you start using it, and you go, that's actually pretty good, and then you go like, oh well, I'll just add that to the list of things I like.
Maybe I have to give it a go.
There's so much depth to it. Oh yeah, it's ridiculously expensive for an early access title, especially for Australia. It's like $40. I just bought it because I'm like, this is my favorite game of all time. I'm like not even going to ask for a code, even try and track one down. I want to play it today. Just done.
Fair enough. All right, guys. Thank you very much for listening. Go check out Hades 2. Let us know in the comments if you are enjoying it. See ya.
Yeah. Peace out.
Peace.